Revealed. How my sister's shocking decision wrecked my house fund and my family forever. Jason wiped the grease from his hands on a worn rag, feeling the familiar hum of happiness as he watched his children chase each other around the backyard. Laughter echoed through the swaying trees, mingling with the delicious smell of burgers sizzling on the grill. This was life in Maplewood, where family and community thrived, anchored by love and shared memories. But that feeling of comfort shattered like glass one crisp autumn evening, when they gathered for their usual Sunday dinner. "I'm quitting my job," Lila announced, her voice cutting through the joyful chatter. All 5 of her words dropped like heavy stones in the serene pond of their family gathering. Jason's heart sank. "I'm going to start a tech company," she added, her eyes shimmering with ambition. The cheerful mood evaporated, replaced by silence thicker than fog. He stared at her in disbelief. Years of hard work, saving for their dream home just within reach, and she was tossing it all away for a high-risk venture? "What about your stability?" Jason asked, almost pleading. Everybody knew Lila's job was her safety net, a steady paycheck that kept their family afloat. The room buzzed with unspoken accusations. His father glanced away, his mother's eyes darting nervously between the 2 siblings. Jason felt a pulling at his chest, anger and betrayal mixed into an urgent whirlwind. "Don't you realize what this means for all of us?" He shot back, his voice breaking. Suddenly memories flooded in. The backyard barbecues, the Ferris wheel rides, the high-fives over shared victories. Everything they built together felt at stake. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of Lila's decision turned family dinners into icy standoffs. The laughter Jason loved felt like a distant echo, replaced now with tension. Each week they gathered, forced smiles creeping on their faces, while his savings dwindled. Together they had always been a fortress, but now Jason felt like it was crumbling to dust. One evening, caught in the thick fog of feelings, emotions exploded. "You're being selfish," he exclaimed, his voice filled with desperation. Anger surged through him as he voiced the unspoken words. Dreams are wonderful, but they won't fill the empty places in his children's hearts. "You think you can just roll the dice and forget about the sacrifices? I can't take that risk." In that heated moment, Lila crossed her arms and glared, her expression furious yet hurt. Their father's dusty toolbox caught Jason's eye, a relic of their childhood, one filled with memories of their dad teaching them how to fix things. It dawned on him then. It was not just a toolbox, it was a representation of everything they stood for. "I'm sorry, but I won't lose what we built," Jason said, his voice softening as he pointed toward the toolbox. "What was it all for, if we're not even together in this?" His words hung in the air, heavy and painful. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." That moment, charged with raw emotion, left Jason standing at a crossroads. The toolbox echoed their past, yet the future lay ahead, shrouded in uncertainty. Would his sister's dreams cost their family everything he had worked for? As they stood there with unspoken questions thick between them, each sibling understood the stakes. The echoes of their laughter felt so far away as they faced a choice. Could they bridge the gap between dreams and loyalty, or would ambition sever their unbreakable bond forever? The following week, the tension lingered thick, an uninvited guest at the dinner table. Jason watched Lila closely as they sat across from each other, small hands fumbling with forks, their kids blissfully unaware of the rift growing between their parents. Lila eventually glanced up, meeting Jason's gaze for a fleeting moment before looking down at her plate. "Can we just talk about this?" Lila's voice was softer now but still carried the weight of her ambition. Jason clenched his jaw, the tightness in his chest pulling him toward anger. "Talk? You already decided. This isn't a conversation, it's a declaration." She took a deep breath, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Their reflections held pain he never wanted to see. "I'm not asking you to believe in me blindly. I just want you to understand. I've wanted this for so long. It's not about throwing away our future." He felt the crack in his heart deepen. "And what about the future we built together? This house, it's not just brick and walls. It's everything we've worked for. My kids deserve a home. Lila opened her mouth, but before she could let words fall free, their father intervened. Both of you, enough. The shaky lines of authority trembled in the air. Jason's heart raced as he watched his father rub his temples, clearly exhausted by their frantic back and forth. You're both right in your own ways. But fighting like this isn't going to fix anything. The silence that followed was a heavy blanket, suffocating and awkward. Jason felt the burden of emotions wrap around him, squeezing tighter. Seeing his father weary, trapped between two of his children, broke him a little more. You need to give her a chance, Jason, their mother chimed in quietly. What if she succeeds? Can't you find it in your heart to support her? Support her? By risking everything? I can't be okay with that. Jason snapped, frustration bubbling. For a moment, Lila looked almost small, her strength flickering like a candle in the wind. We've faced tough decisions before, remember? You took a leap to start that landscaping business when you were uncertain. Why am I not allowed to pursue mine? This isn't just a dream. It's a chance for growth. Her voice had a tremor, laden with desperation, and Jason felt his defenses weaken. A part of him knew she deserved to chase something bigger than herself, but another part, a louder part, warned him of risks that might drown their family. That night was restless. Sleep eluded him like it was hiding. He replayed Lila's words, the fire in her eyes when she spoke about her dreams, contrasting sharply with the fear in Jason's own heart. Over coffee the next morning, he couldn't shake the dread that hovered at the back of his mind. Have you thought about how this could all go south? He asked as decision day crept closer. If it doesn't work out, where do we stand? Do you think I haven't? Lila's voice cracked. Scary, I get it. But what if it does work, Jason? What if I create something that can help us? He hesitated, caught between love and fear. He remembered when he took that leap, but those nostalgic feelings felt so far removed from the heavy responsibilities of fatherhood. As the days passed, a soft glimmer of hope mixed with doubt began to form. Could they find a middle ground? Would they be able to join forces, to support each other despite the risk? Upon waking up to the sound of laughter drifting from the backyard, Jason made a decision that would either empower them or tear them apart. He wanted to believe their bond could withstand this storm. Lila, he called out, feeling a rush of boldness. Maybe we can come up with a plan together. Something that protects what we have but doesn't stop you from pursuing your dream. What do you think? As she turned to him, an unexpected flicker of hope danced in her eyes. But before they could delve deeper, a loud crash came from the living room, cutting through the fragile moment and anchoring them back to reality. What now? Jason snapped, exasperated. As they dashed to investigate, a bombshell was about to drop, one that neither of them saw coming. Jason and Lila burst into the living room, hearts racing, minds still tangled in their earlier confrontation. The sight before them was chaos incarnate. Their youngest son, Max, stood amidst a pile of shattered ceramic pieces, his little face frozen in shock. A jigsaw of shapes and colors scattered around him, remnants of a beloved family vase that had adorned the mantel for years. Lila gasped, rushing to kneel beside Max. Oh, sweetheart, are you okay? Max wailed, tears pooling in his eyes. I didn't mean to. It was just I wanted to see the butterfly. His tiny finger pointed to a fluttering butterfly hovering at the window, far from the broken vase. Jason felt his frustration surge again, not at Max but at the situation. It's just a vase, he muttered, trying to mask his irritation. Yet, the remorse settled heavily in his chest. It was Grandma's, Lila whispered, her voice trembling slightly as she gathered the boy into her arms. The vase wasn't just a decorative piece. It was a symbol of family, of hopes, memories, the home they had built together. In that moment, Jason saw the pain etched on Lila's face. She was caught in the memory of happier times, and he felt it too, the tug of nostalgia, the weight of everything he'd been fighting to protect. But now, the conflict felt like a shadow overshadowing their family. I'll clean it up, Jason said, reluctantly kneeling to gather the shards, but his mind was consumed by anxiety, a feeling that gnawed at him like a persistent itch. Just a vase, but why did it feel like their dreams were unraveling before his eyes? Lila's voice broke through his thoughts. Maybe we shouldn't repair it right away, not until we decide what we want to do. He looked up at her, confusion flooding his senses. What do you mean? It's broken. We fix broken things. That's the thing, right? Maybe we can't fix everything. Maybe we need to let some things stay broken for a while, you know? Lila's eyes held a flicker of understanding, a flicker that echoed the dilemma they both faced. Just then their older daughter, Hannah, came in from the kitchen, her eyes wide. What happened? I heard a crash. Max buried his head in Lila's shoulder, and Jason straightened, bothered by the wave of uncertainty washing over him. Just an accident, he said, attempting to downplay the situation, but his own heart felt heavy. Hannah's gaze darted from the mess on the floor to her parents. Are you guys fighting again? Jason exchanged a glance with Lila, a pang of guilt shooting through him. No, honey. Just a little disagreement about. He hesitated. What was it really about? The vase? Their future? The dreams they each had that were colliding like their family's carefully curated collection of memories? It's not just about the vase. It's about supporting each other, right? Max piped up, suddenly and unexpectedly wiser than his 4 years suggested. Exactly, Lila whispered. Jason watched her eyes soften, her heart opening up as she glanced at her children. It's about creating something beautiful, even when things get broken. Jason swallowed hard. There was a truth in their son's innocent words. Their home, their dreams, everything felt fragile, like that vase. But they couldn't simply let the pieces scatter and go to waste. You're right, Max, he said, his voice steadier now. Maybe we can put something together. Something new out of the old pieces. Lila gave him a small smile, warmth swimming back into her gaze. They both understood now that they needed to communicate and collaborate, not just about dreams for themselves, but dreams for their family. As afternoon light poured in through the windows, casting a golden glow across the room, Jason felt a wave of determination rise within him. Perhaps this was their moment. They could learn to embrace both their ambitions and their family. But as he turned to gather the remaining shards, the doorbell rang, echoing through the house. Who is that? Lila asked, her voice laced with curiosity. Jason exchanged a quick glance with her, uncertainty creeping back in. Just let me see. He opened the door, but stood frozen at the threshold. A figure loomed larger than life, their presence immediately altering the atmosphere of the home. It was someone from Lila's past, someone who may make everything more complicated, a decision from long ago that had begun to rear its ugly head. And just like that, Jason's heart started to race again. What would this meeting mean for their fragile moment of unity? Was this the last thing they needed, or a chance for new beginnings? Jason stood at the door, his heart a frantic drumbeat in his chest. He was locked in place, staring at a face he hadn't seen in years. Lila's sister Mia stood there, a mix of tension and fragility in her eyes. It felt like a lifetime ago that Jason had seen her smile, a smile that once lit up family gatherings now seemed dim, shadowed by memories best left untouched. Mia, Lila's voice broke through the thick silence, her expression shifting from surprise to confusion. I didn't think I'd see you like this, Mia said, her voice shaking slightly, holding on to an edge of uncertainty. I needed to talk. The moment hung heavy in the air. Jason could sense the change in Lila beside him, the tension thrumming in her body like a guitar string about to snap. They were still in the aftermath of the vase incident, a simple metaphor for everything that felt fragile in their lives. Can we come in? Mia asked, glancing from Jason to Lila. The question hung between them like an unspoken curse. Jason took a breath, stepping aside, and gestured for her to enter. Lila followed, her brows furrowed in concern. They all moved into the living room, and the broken shards seemed to glare back at them, a reminder of the delicate state of their home and hearts. What's going on? Lila finally asked, her voice steadier than her inside felt. Mia shifted from one foot to another, her eyes diverting to the ground. It's about Mom. She's not well and it's affecting everything. I need your help, Lila. The word struck Jason like a punch. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen their mother-in-law, and the memories that surfaced dragged him into a flood of guilt. They had been preoccupied with their own issues, losing touch. What do you mean? Lila asked, her voice a mixture of worry and determination. Is it serious? She's been keeping things from you, Mia said, her words tumbling out. Her health? Her finances. She's facing a crisis. And if she doesn't get help soon, Jason felt his heart sink. The implications of her words twisted something in his gut. They had been so focused on their own challenges that they hadn't even considered the ones their family was facing. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Lila's voice tightened, heartbreak creeping in. I was afraid you'd feel burdened, Mia whispered, looking genuinely distressed. I thought I could handle it. But it's getting worse. I can't do this alone. A long silence followed, the chaos of their earlier confrontation fading into the background, replaced by an even heavier weight. Then Max, still sitting silently on the couch, piped up. We can help Grandma. Can we fix her? Just like the vase? His innocent suggestion pierced through the tension, but it only sunk deeper into Jason's chest. A family should help each other, right? Max's little face, so earnest, broke something inside Jason. Yes, honey, Lila said, her voice soft now, filled with warmth but edged with worry. Families do help each other. But we need to think about how to do it. The realization dawned on Jason. Fixing the vase was merely a symptom of their larger battles. They were not just fighting the past, there were now new challenges threatening their family. Mia looked at Lila, hope lingering in her eyes. Can we talk about it? Maybe together we can figure something out for Mom. The moment felt monumental. Jason could already feel the emotional and financial strain pushing into their lives. Would they step up and support not just themselves but extend their family embrace to someone who needed it? I don't know how much support I can give right now, he said finally, the weight feeling unbearable. But if we're doing this, we have to be all in. No more hiding. We need to talk about everything. Lila nodded slowly, glancing over at Max, and a sense of resolve settled around her. But for Jason, a storm of emotions built up. It wasn't just about helping Lila's mother. It was about confronting the choices they had made in their own lives, the sacrifices, the bonds that had become frayed. Okay, let us discuss what needs to happen, Lila said, determination in her voice while Jason steeled himself for what was to come. Just then Jason's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and his heart dropped again. It was a message from his boss, a reminder about the looming deadline and an unexpected crisis at work. I need to check this, he said, feeling the world spin again. But as he stepped away, he couldn't shake the feeling that every decision was entwining, every moment he was weaving into something more profound. Was this the moment that would change everything for them? Would this meeting be the beginning of a new bond, or the breaking point of everything they'd been trying to hold together? Jason stepped outside, the weight of Mia's words lingering in the air like a thick fog. He could hear the murmur of voices behind him as Lila and Mia discussed their mother, but all he could focus on was the glow from his phone. The text from his boss weighed heavily on his mind. A meeting at 2, where he'd have to explain the project delays. The familiar knot of anxiety tightened in his stomach, swirling with his guilt over neglecting Lila's family. He paced the small front porch, the wood creaking softly under his feet. Every second felt like a ticking clock counting down to a crisis. What had they gotten themselves into? Jason had always envisioned their lives progressing towards stability, buying a house, starting a family. But all of that was unraveling at the seams. As he leaned against the railing, the sound of laughter drifted from inside. Max was sharing a silly story, his giggles breaking the unease that had settled over them. Jason couldn't help but smile at that innocent joy, yet it was fleeting. It reminded him how easy it was for children to find happiness in small moments, while adults struggled beneath life's burdens. He took a deep breath, hoping to ground himself. Why didn't I see this coming? He whispered to himself. It dawned on him that they'd always been so engulfed in their struggles, so preoccupied with their own dreams, that they had neglected the ties that bound them to family. Returning inside, he found Lila sitting on the couch, her expression transformed. She looked more determined than ever, embers of resolve flickering in her eyes. Mia sat opposite her, her hands clasped tight in her lap, waiting for Jason to rejoin their discussion. Everything okay? Lila asked, her voice smoothing out the tension he'd just stepped away from. Yeah, he replied, forcing a smile. Just needed a moment. Good. We need to make a plan. Mama's not going to get better on her own. Lila's words were laced with concern, but underneath that was a new sense of strength. She looked at Mia, then back at him. We have to prioritize, make sure we cover all bases. Right, Jason said, the reality of their situation crashing down on him. What exactly does she need? Financial help? Care? Mia took a breath, seemingly steadier now. Both. She needs someone to help with her medications and doctor visits. And she's behind on bills. The cracks in her voice highlighted the gravity of the situation. And for Jason, it felt as if those stories of hardship were pulling him further into a whirlpool. What can we do? He asked, the urgency pushing him to grab onto something solid. Lila hesitated, and Jason could see the anxiety rolling back in. We can only offer what we can manage, and it's not that much right now, she said quietly. We should start with helping organize her finances, maybe find a way to get her proper care. He nodded, quickly sorting through the thoughts racing through his mind. I can talk to my boss, maybe figure out if I can take some time off. To help her directly. The prospect felt daunting, yet it also sparked a flicker of hope. But as soon as those words left his mouth, doubt crept back in, a nagging voice whispering that it wasn't enough. What if his boss turned him down? What if the work crisis reached a breaking point with no safety net to catch him? Are you sure? Mia asked, the concern in her voice tugging at his heart. I don't want to take you away from your work, and you've already got so much on your plate. Family comes first, he found himself saying, surprising even himself with the strength behind it. Yeah, Lila added, squeezing his hand. This is just as vital as anything we're working toward. Maybe even more. Jason felt the warmth of her touch spreading through him, a gentle reminder of their shared strength. But as they began to discuss the next steps, his phone buzzed again, this time with a series of frantic emails from his boss. A looming deadline was not merely a stressor anymore. It was becoming something that could shatter the precarious peace they were trying to build. I wish we could put all this on hold, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. But it's all real and pressing. I just want to make sure we don't lose everything, Lila said softly, making Jason's heart tighten. An idea sparked in him, one that felt both terrifying and necessary. What if we hold a family meeting? Get everyone together to talk strategies. A united front. Max, who had been watching quietly, perked up. Can I help? I can make lemonade. His enthusiasm was infectious, and for a moment, Jason felt a sliver of normalcy glimmering through the chaos. Sure, buddy. That might help lighten things up, Jason said, his heart swelling with pride. But just as they settled into a plan, Jason's phone buzzed yet again. This time with a notification that sent chills down his spine. It was a news alert about a severe storm heading their way, a storm that could disrupt everything they were trying to hold together. Things aren't going to get any easier, he murmured, looking at Lila as she squeezed his hand tighter. They were on a collision course. Would they be able to face the storms ahead? Or would they drown beneath their growing pressures? As Max dashed into the kitchen, Jason could only wonder if their family's embrace was enough to weather what was coming next. As the storm clouds gathered looming outside, the atmosphere inside the house felt like it was holding its breath. The sound of thunder rumbled in the distance, echoing Jason's mounting sense of dread. He glanced over at Lila, whose face was etched with concern as she rummaged through papers spread across the coffee table. The weight of their circumstances pressed heavy on everyone. Let us focus on what we can do now, Lila said, her voice steady despite the anguish swirling around them. We can start by calling Mom's doctor. Set up an appointment, maybe see if we can even squeeze something in this week. Mia nodded, still seated, her posture stiff. I can do that. I know how to talk to them. I'll take the lead. We don't want to overwhelm her, and her eyes shimmered as she struggled with the rising tide of emotion. Jason was grateful for their determination but couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness that crept up his spine. He wanted to be the anchor for Lila and Mia, the solid foundation upon which they could build their plans. They didn't need more chaos when they were already swimming against an unrelenting current. I'll handle the finances, Jason said, surprising himself with the authority in his tone. I'll look for any resources we can tap into. Maybe see if there are community programs that can help before things get worse. Are you sure you can handle both? Lila asked, her brow furrowing with worry. I don't want you to wear yourself thin. I can do this, he reassured her, though uncertainty gnawed at him. We'll divide it up. We can make it work. Just as he finished speaking, a loud crack of thunder shook the house, causing all of them to jump. Max came running in, eyes wide with excitement and fear. Did you hear that? It was huge. He stood between Lila and Mia, clinging to his sister. Yeah, buddy, it was pretty loud, Jason said, forcing a smile. But we're safe here. No storm can break this family. But inside he felt like a fraud. Could he really keep them safe? With bills stacking up and a mother needing care. How could his words really hold any weight? After a brief silence, Lila stood tall. Okay, what about a family meeting tomorrow? All together, everyone can pitch in. We have more family than just us, we can't face this alone. Mia nodded curtly, the resolve returning to her features. We can gather ideas, figure out the practical steps and coordinate our efforts. Maybe even bring in Grandma and Aunt Jess, they've been through a lot, maybe they can help. The plan began to take shape, filling the void with purpose. Jason felt a flicker of hope as a single thought crossed his mind. Together they were stronger. Max can make lemonade, he joked, trying to lighten the mood. I will. The young boy shouted again, now partially a beacon of laughter amidst the tension. The meeting would also serve as a moment for them to breathe together, to share not just their concerns but also their joys and memories. But as their plans solidified, Jason's phone buzzed once more. This time, it was an alert from the weather service about the storm intensifying, and with it came the fear that everything they were just beginning to build might crumble under the weight of what was ahead. What if the storm hits harder? What if the power goes out? What if Jason didn't finish the thought, instead looking at Lila? The flicker of anxiety in her eyes matched his own fears, mirroring the storm brewing outside. What if we do this together? Lila countered, her voice calm and strong. We face it all together. As they huddled closer, Max seemed to sense the tension, his innocent smile breaking through the clouds that hung over them. We're a team, he declared, his exuberant spirit lifting a small part of the heaviness in the room. Just then, Jason heard the unmistakable sound of hail hitting against the roof. It felt like the universe was pounding out a warning. Tomorrow is going to be tough, he murmured, feeling the storm wasn't just outside but building within them too. With resolve and uncertainty blending together, he turned to his family, wondering if the bonds they were forging would be enough to weather not just the storm outside, but the storms that lingered in the shadows of their lives. As the hail grew more intense, they heard a desperate knock at the door. And in that moment, heart racing, Jason felt a chill. What if this unexpected visitor brought news that could change everything? Jason's heart raced as the knock echoed through the house, louder than the thunder outside. He exchanged glances with Lila and Mia, confusion washing over their faces. Who could that be? Lila whispered, her voice barely making it above the din of the storm, the fear in her eyes sharpening as she caught Jason's gaze. I'll go check, Jason managed, forcing his legs to move. He didn't want to leave the fragile bubble of unity they had just built, but someone was out there, and the uncertainty stirred something deep in him as he approached the door. The wind howled, and he could almost feel it pushing him back. Taking a deep breath, Jason opened the door. Cold air rushed in, and there stood Aunt Jess, drenched and breathing heavily. Her clothes clung to her like a second skin. Jess, what are you doing here? Jason's voice cracked. He stepped aside to let her in, and she stumbled inside, shaking off rain like a dog. Are you okay? I wasn't sure if you all were safe, she said, eyes darting around the room, clearly assessing the atmosphere, her anxiousness palpable. I tried calling, but the lines were down. The storm isn't just fierce. It's dangerous. I had to check on your mom. He caught the fear in her voice. It felt familiar. A dark shadow that loomed just beyond their family's walls. Mom, is she's not well, Jason admitted, feeling the weight of their reality settle back on his shoulders as he gestured toward the living room. We're trying to sort everything out. Aunt Jess's expression shifted, like she understood the storm they were all facing, not just the one outside. You shouldn't handle this alone, she said softly, yet firmly. We'll figure it out together. Jason nodded, wanting to believe in the words, but still unsure if help could even touch the mountain of worry pressing down on them. Just then Max dashed into the room, his small figure a burst of energy even amid the chaos. Look, Aunt Jess. I'm going to make lemonade tomorrow, he exclaimed, the innocence of his declaration somehow brightening the air. Aunt Jess knelt down, wiping away the water from her face. Lemonade, huh? Sounds delicious. Do you think we can add some rainwater for flavor? She winked, and to Jason's surprise, Max giggled, his laughter a small relief in a heavy moment, but the levity was short-lived. The sound of hail slamming against the roof grew louder, a menacing rhythm that drowned out their brief moment of joy. Jason turned back to Aunt Jess, and the weight of the situation hung in the air. What if more bad news is coming? He ventured, his voice trembling, revealing the anxiety he had tried to bury. The thought of all their plans crumbling loomed over him, larger than the storm outside. Bad news can't defeat us if we face it together, Jess said, her voice steady and unwavering. The truth is, we need to talk about our options. You can't shoulder this alone. Jason felt a flicker of anger mix with his unease. What do you mean? What do you want me to do? Give up? No, she raised her hands for calm, her eyes softening. But there's more here than you realize. There are resources, people who can help you. But you need to let them in. The tension in the room thickened. Jason felt trapped between pride and vulnerability. Wasn't reaching out the same as admitting defeat? But the storm, both inside and outside, was relentless. Just as he was about to respond, a loud crack of lightning illuminated the room, revealing Mia standing at the corner, pale and silent. What about Grandma? She whispered, her brows furrowed. She's been through so much. What if we need her? Jason's heart dropped. Could they really ask for help? Would that be seen as a weakness? Or was it a necessary step toward survival? In that moment, thunder rolled in agreement, and Jason realized the storm wasn't just outside. It was circling them, demanding their response. Maybe it's time to reach out, he said slowly, as much to himself as to them. Maybe help is what we need after all. As they looked at each other, uncertainty mixed with possibility, filling the air with hope. Would it be enough? Would they finally be able to weather the storm together? Or was this the beginning of a tempest that would tear them apart? From outside, another knock shattered their thoughts. A different sound this time, clearer. What they had feared might crash against their lives again. Jason turned toward the door. Should I answer? A collective breath was held, and as he stood there, he wondered if this time, the answer would change everything. Jason hesitated, frozen at the door, the silence in the room thick enough to choke on. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to recoil, to protect whatever fragile hope remained. But something deeper, a sense of duty and curiosity, pushed him to reach for the doorknob again. Whoever it is, they need to be let in, Aunt Jess said quietly, stepping closer. Her voice resonated with a calm that opened a door in his mind he hadn't noticed before. The walls he'd built around his heart were crying for a chance to break down, even if just a little. With a breath that shook, he turned the knob. The door swung wide, rain pelted the threshold, but standing there, muddy boots sinking into the damp wood, was Uncle Ray. His face was damp and contorted with worry, framed by curls that stuck to his forehead. Ray? Jason's voice felt like a soft whisper compared to the storm outside. What are you doing here? I got worried when I saw the lights flicker on and off in your place. He stepped inside, shaking a bit of water off before closing the door behind him. I thought I might need to bring some supplies or something. Uncle Ray always had a knack for practical solutions, and Jason appreciated that now more than ever. But the moment felt heavy with unspoken words. Everything okay? Ray scanned the room, his brow knitting tighter as Lila and Mia exchanged worried glances. It's complicated, Jason admitted, feeling annoyingly vulnerable. It was hard to articulate their current storm, both the literal one outside and the emotional one inside. Mom's not well, and we're trying to figure out what to do. Ray's shoulders slumped a little, but then he nodded decisively. Then we definitely need to talk. You're not alone in this. His voice was firm with an underlying warmth that offered a sense of security. Max stood nearby, silent and observant, still basking in the glow of his lemonade plans that seemed so distant now. Aunt Jess knelt down to his level. Hey buddy, how about you help me out? I think we need to set up a little command center in the kitchen. Think you can be my assistant? Max's face lit up. The weight of the storm temporarily lifted in the excitement of distraction. Sure. I can get the sandwiches too. He dashed away, leaving the adults with their heavy hearts. We need to call Grandma. Mia broke the silence that had stretched again. She might have some ideas. She has seen worse. I know it. Her voice was small but unwavering. What if she doesn't want to see us? Jason said, the weight of doubt creeping into his heart as he leaned against the doorframe. What if Ray stepped closer, cutting through his spiraling thoughts? Jason, sometimes reaching out is the strongest thing you can do. We don't live in isolation. You have family who care. Let them help you. Let them help us. It echoed in his mind, the words like a weight lifting. You really think so? I know so, Ray replied, his confidence steadying Jason's racing heart. Another round of hail splattered against the windows, but Jason felt a warm resolve rising like a glow in his chest. The storm outside might be relentless, but they had each other. What if Grandma has her own storms to face? Mia whispered, her innocence raw as she contemplated their grandmother's struggles. Then we face them together, Lila said softly, determination threading through her voice. Jason nodded, the small flickers of hope igniting into flames of possibility. He could start seeing a way forward, a path paved with trust and connection. Okay, I'll call her, he decided firmly. Just as he moved towards the kitchen, the ominous crack of lightning split the air again outside, intensifying the evening's tension. He turned back, alarming realization dawning on him. But what if she says no? In that split second, he felt the breath of the storm invade the warmth of their home, and he realized their own battle was just beginning. Would they muster enough strength to face it? The door creaked behind him, and Jason felt another wave of uncertainty crash over him, echoing the knock that seemed to bring only more questions. What awaited them on the other side, and would it tear them apart or pull them closer together? Jason stood there, heart racing, staring at the door that felt more like a barrier than an entrance. He could hear the distinct sound of rain hammering against the window, a symphony of chaos outside that matched the turmoil brewing within. The taste of doubt lingered in the air, heavy and palpable. Just breathe, he murmured to himself, but the command felt weak. There was too much at stake. If Grandma didn't want to help, what then? They were looking for a lifeline, and it felt as if the rope was fraying at the ends. Hey, Ray said, breaking into Jason's thoughts. I know it feels overwhelming right now, but think about why you're reaching out. You're doing this for your mom, for your family. Jason nodded, though the knot in his stomach tightened. He had never been the one to ask for help. That was Rachel's role. She could charm anyone with her laughter, a breath of fresh air in strained moments. But now it was just him, and the weight of that felt heavy, almost suffocating. I'll call her, he finally said, his voice steadier than he felt. He grabbed the phone from the table where Mia had tossed it earlier, fingers trembling slightly over the screen as the phone rang. Memories flooded back, summer days spent in Grandma's backyard, laughter swirling around the sun-drenched lawn, and Rachel twirling with abandon, the essence of freedom and connection in every leap. And then everything shifted, the moment Rachel chose to leave for her own life in a faraway city. Jason's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a voice crackling over the line. Hello? Grandma? His voice trembled, a mix of hope and fear. Jason, is everything okay? The concern radiated from her words, comforting yet daunting. He hesitated, contemplating how much to reveal. It's Mom. She's not doing well. We think you might be able to help. Silence on the other end felt like an eternity, and his heart pounded in his chest. I can come over. I'd like to see her, Grandma finally replied, resolution firming her tone. He exhaled, relief washing over him like the rain outside. Thank you, he managed, voice breaking slightly. Just be there for her. We'll figure it out together, Grandma added, and he could almost envision her nodding with assurance when he hung up. A sense of weightlessness combined with a flicker of anxiety hovered in the room. She's coming, he announced, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. Mia's face brightened, a smile breaking through her earlier worries. See, I told you she would help, she exclaimed, optimism bouncing around the room like light. Ray grinned, squeezing Jason's shoulder. That's good. Now we can make a plan. Just then, another clap of thunder rattled the house, shaking Jason's resolve. Questions wrapped around his mind once again. Would it be enough? I don't want to burden her, Jason blurted, unsure if he meant Grandma or himself. Suddenly these thoughts were rushing at him, suffocating the hope he felt moments ago. What if it's all too much? It's okay to lean on each other. That's what family does, Ray said, an understanding warmth present in his eyes. Jason let the words settle, feeling a hint of reassurance starting to bloom deep within him. But as the winds howled and shadows danced around the dimly lit room, he couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. Outside, the storm raged on. The night felt endless, And Jason understood that the very real challenges were far from over. If their family needed to unite amidst the chaos of their lives, would they find the strength and the willingness to do so? And just as his thoughts tangled deeper, a knock echoed through the heavy air, sending chills down his spine. What would that knock bring? A new challenge? Or an unexpected ally? Jason stood at the threshold, his heart pounding again as he faced yet another knock at the door. The storm outside was a backdrop to the gathering storm within. What could possibly be next? He opened the door slowly, bracing himself. The rain poured down in sheets, blending with the anxiety swirling around in his chest. As the door swung wide, a familiar figure stepped cautiously into the light. It was Grandma, looking frail but resolute, her eyes sparkling even through the worry etched into her face. "Jason," she called, her voice carrying warmth and strength, cutting through the thick air around him. "Grandma." His voice cracked with emotion as he stepped aside to let her in, holding back the flood of relief that threatened to spill over. "I'm so glad you're here. Where's your mother? How is she?" As Jason led Grandma into the cozy chaos of their living room, he felt an unexpected wave of comfort. This space held so much history and love, pieces of family scattered with laughter. Lila came in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. As her eyes landed on Grandma, the weight of everything they had been carrying suddenly shifted. "Mom!" Lila exclaimed, wrapping her arms around her grandmother in a tight embrace. Jason watched as relief washed over Lila's face, the tension easing ever so slightly. Now I'm old but not fragile," Grandma chuckled, pulling back to study Lila. "I'm here because we are family. We stand together." Jason felt tears prick at his eyes. There it was, the lifeline they had desperately needed. The room filled with a shared understanding. This was not just about fixing problems, but about facing them as a family. "I'm so grateful you came," Jason interjected, stepping forward. "We have so much to discuss." "Mom," he hesitated, casting a worried glance toward the heavy air. She needs help. "Then let us figure this out together," Grandma said, determination igniting in her eyes. The storm outside intensified, but within them, a flicker of hope illuminated the gloom. They gathered around the coffee table. Jason, Lila, Grandma, and Mia, who had quietly moved beside them. Max, still buzzing with enthusiasm, returned from the kitchen with a tray of lemonade. "Here," he announced proudly, wearing a grin that came straight from his heart. "Let us celebrate us being a team." Jason watched, truly seeing how even a simple pitcher of lemonade brought smiles to their strained faces. Just as Max poured the drinks, Jason felt the warmth of unity wrapping around their family, a warmth that no storm could dampen. As they sipped lemonade, Jason focused on Grandma. "What are the next steps?" he asked, the urgency returning. "I can reach out to some resources," she said, her voice steady. "We'll need to coordinate, get a clear picture of what your mother needs. Finances, medication, all of it." "We can do that," Lila said, looking to the group with fierce determination. They settled into conversations, plans forming naturally. Each voice built upon the last, weaving a tapestry of action and commitment. Jason felt the weight lifting, fears ebbing away, replaced by shared responsibility and love. But the storm outside still raged, a heavy reminder of what they faced. "Grandma, what about?" Jason began, but he was interrupted by a loud crack of thunder, shaking the ground beneath them. "Keep the faith," Grandma urged, and Jason could see the resilience in her eyes. "Together as a family," Mia added firmly. "Yes," Max chimed in, raising his glass. "Teamwork." Jason chuckled, the tension finally breaking. He raised his glass too. "To teamwork. To family." Everyone echoed, their voices intermingling in a chorus of strength. For the first time in what felt like ages, Jason felt the pulse of hope beating steadily in his chest. It wasn't just about fixing what had been broken. It was about creating something new out of the old, laying stronger foundations where there had once been cracks. The storm outside continued to howl, but inside, they had weathered their personal tempest and emerged united. "Now about tomorrow," Grandma began, her voice resolute. Sitting around that table, Jason felt the reassurance of a bond fortified in the storm's wake. No matter the challenges looming, they would face them as one. He glanced at Lila, who looked back at him through a veil of tears, but smiling amidst them. He realized that family was the shelter that would keep them safe. Gripping hands, exchanging knowing looks, they prepared to tackle whatever lay ahead. "Okay, let us do this," Jason declared, determination flooding through him. "Together." With that simple word, the deepest power of their connection resonated in the room, filling it with light, laughter, and an unshakable sense of belonging. And as the storm rolled on, they knew no matter what came next, it was this unity, this family bond, that would carry them through anything. Now is the moment. If you felt that spark of inspiration, you need to subscribe now to experience more exclusive stories like this. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below with your feelings about this emotional journey. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand this is how we keep the stories alive.